Famously, this show is now a college football show. I've long said this. Josh Pate joins us in studio. He, of course, also knows this. Well documented.
It says it on the door.
It's never been anything but. I don't know what you're talking about.
The paint's still wet, but it says it on the door.
CFB show.
I knew you'd come around. That's the whole thing.
I'm so sad. It took my spirit being broken. Okay, it took 3 years of just getting just tragedy, football tragedy.
But now he's scared because people are really going to see right through him.
Yeah. That's my fear. That's my deep sea. That's why I'm so upset, because I'm about to have to make a pivot that I have never been more unequipped in my life to make.
But can we just lead with the big news of the day? You're pivoting to college football, at a time where Indiana cracked the JP poll last night for the first time ever.
Yeah. Who's your football, baby?
Wait till Florida swoops in.
Sig Signetti out here dicing them up. They scored 77 in a game before Tennessee did.
Yeah,
Eat it.
They sure did.
Eat it, nerd.
Look at that, man. They're in there. Rutgers is in there.
Oh.
It's just, the sport has a lot to offer. If you want to continue playing with the team you're on, it has a lot to offer.
Well, at least I get the TMZ element of it. If I'm going to make this pivot, at least I can get some NFL vibes, because I've never seen a contract holdout without a contract in football before, but that seems to be what UNLV is currently experiencing with their quarterback. And now Lucas brought this up during the commercial break, but Lucas, you're saying that college coaches elsewhere are commenting on the situation with the UNLV quarterback, who said that he was promised a certain amount of money that was not fulfilled. There are conflicting reports to that effect. And now you have finger pointing at a kid that just quit on a team.
Brian Kelly saying, quote, the NIL becomes a third-party piece, you lose control. And that's why the revenue-sharing piece is so important, and getting that legislation passed now puts that back through the universities. He went on at some length. Kirby Smart telling us this will not be the last time something like this happens.
Your thoughts?
I am looking at a screen I'm in the live chat on the YouTube channel right now, but I'm looking at a screen right now of people texting me who work in athletic departments. I've got 3 of them on my screen that I have ongoing conversations with. I'm going to read you what one of them just said. This is not the only group of 5 player in this situation. What he did is not unprecedented. Right now, you're in a situation where programs were advised by lawyers due to the unclear rules. They were risking penalties if they entered into written contracts with players. So there are a lot of guys out there, because of the complete nebulosity of NCAA ruling, that decided, well, we need to pay the players, but we don't know if it's legal, so we're just going to enter into verbal agreements. And then who's making the verbal agreement with the player? Is it always the head coach? Is it always the collective? Is it an assistant coach? So that's in the abstract. In the here and now, this is pathetic for college football. And for those who are just tuning in, like, the quarterback just flat out quit on UNLV this morning. And here's what happened. Having now spoken to enough people inside that program, this family, et cetera, I think the kids started out the season and then wanted more money and went to him, and they said no. And then he discussed a little bit reduced rate, and they still said no. And I've got it on fairly good authority. Those were sizable numbers. And whenever they want to release them, they can release them. And so they basically called his bluff, and he wasn't bluffing, and he's gone. And so that was one of the favorites to compete for a G5 playoff spot, by the way. UNLV's undefeated. They're rolling right now. I think they got Syracuse coming in either this week or next week. And so here's the standoff. The standoff is, what are you going to do about it? Not us in this room. We're powerless. But what are you going to do about it? Who's a decision maker? If this happened in the NFL, everyone would just look at Roger Goodell. In college football, you just look all around the room. Everyone looks at each other. No one knows who to look at. So what the coaches are saying there, they've known. They're trying to operate and run major programs, and they have no clue what the rules are. They have no clue what's legal, and what's legal now may not be legal 2 years from now. So how do you even enter into deals where there is no guideline? There's certainly no precedent for almost any of this. So no one knows how to run an athletic department. It's on the fly. There's no book on it.
It's just funny to me because, I'm used to seeing players threaten to hold out. I'm not used to seeing players quit. We brought up Sadiq Charles in the middle of the Titans season. I know the Jets pass rusher Hassan Reddick, right, he's still missing games as far as I know.
Stacking up sizable fines in the process.
So he hasn't outright quit, but he is quiet quitting. It's not so quiet in New York, but he's quiet quitting. So this is a phenomenon that I'm not completely unaccustomed to at the professional level, but NFL players have a degree of leverage because you cannot just go to the next player off the conveyor belt in recruiting the way that college football programs can. And I don't know the state of UNLV's, I don't know why that's so hard for me, UNLV's quarterback room, but I have to imagine that it is far easier to just say, all right, kid, you're up next, than to capitulate to a player's demands when the player is not that good.
The other part of this is in the NFL, when you're looking at a player holding out, you're looking at a new contract get signed, they are represented by an agent that is certified, and therefore they are literally an agent. In this world, you and I could be agents tomorrow because all it takes is calling yourself an agent and convincing a kid that you should represent them. I mean, can you imagine now if you're fully on board with players' rights, if you're always defending the player, let me just present a scenario to you. Generic, of course. How would I know any different? Let's say that you get a call at like 5:48 p.m. The Thursday of week 3 of your game, and you answer the phone and say, "Hey, this is Jerry." I was like, "Jerry who? My cousin Jerry?" "Oh, no. I represent your quarterback." "Huh? Who do you work for?" "Oh, him. I represent him." "Says who?" Your quarterback does. "Anyway, we want $75,000 more dollars. We think his market value is increased. So you need to come up with that, or he's not playing this weekend." What do you do? And I'm not talking to you. I'm speaking generically to someone driving around Franklin right now who is Mr. or Mrs. Players' Rights at all costs. What do you do? And also, let's zoom it way out. Why is anyone worth anything in football? It's because it is an entertainment-based concept. A lot of people like this sport. Therefore, your value is really, really big if you can play it. But how do you maintain the value of the sport if what people have loved about it for decades and decades is being chipped away at by introducing new concepts like this? Because I promise you, there is no one who sees this headline or this story playing out today that says, man, I love the sport more now that I see these kind of headlines. The net is only negative on this sort of thing. And so I always said to myself, boy, I'd ask, at the end of the day, the greater good of the sport is inherently part of my value. I'm not a star lacrosse player. I'm a star football player. That's why I make a whole lot of money, and they don't, because people like football more than they do lacrosse in most portions of the country. And so, am I serving any part of that? And are the decisions that are or aren't being made serving any part of that? The answer is a resounding no.
We're going to talk actual college football with Josh Pate. Of course, you can subscribe to Josh Pate's College Football Show on YouTube. You can also get the podcast wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Because from my vantage point here, looking at the way that this stuff is being handled, it just feels more corporate. It feels more cold. It doesn't feel college football. It feels like the NFL. The monetization or the further monetization of college football in the decisions that they've made in conference realignment and the 12-team playoff and all these other things, they are reflective of, all right, just squeeze every last dime out of this at the expense of tradition and at expense of the general feel-good that people have, the genuine love that people have for their programs, where we've talked about this before with you. You have players that don't even identify with a program really anymore for the amount of times that they hop in the transfer portal. That diminishes the entire aura, even as it's not something that you can see, it's not something that you can touch, right? It diminishes the entire aura of what makes college football special and different. I totally understand why this would work not to the benefit of the sport as a whole, but my thing is it's an overcorrection, right?
Sure.
Where players' rights in college football and players' ability or lack thereof to capitalize on their value has been so skewed in favor of universities and television networks and all these things that the overcorrection has now come, and it doesn't make it right, but this is just this thing trying to balance itself out. And you may think that I'm incorrect on that, but that's the way that I see it.
You're actually not correct enough. So let's take it one step further. This is why I think they've got to get it figured out, because the disaster scenario is in play. The disaster scenario was never a G5 quarterback opts out in week 4. That's bad. The disaster scenario is you just expanded your playoff and a lot of people paid billions of dollars to acquire the rights to broadcast it. The entire value of that is built on the idea that everyone cares about the same thing. Everyone places value in the same thing. So for a long time in this sport, we have valued winning on Saturday, getting to a conference title game, hopefully getting to a national title game and winning it. That's above and beyond all else, right? So the thinking was, well, when we expand the playoff, we got kids opting out of bowl games now, but they'd never opt out of, let's say, a playoff game. Because we care about the playoff. And so since we, fans, sports writers, whoever, since we care about it, the players will automatically care about it. Hey, what happens if a group of players gets together and decides, maybe we value money more than a first-round playoff game? What's to stop that from happening? There is nothing. The answer is there's nothing standing in the way of that except maintaining the facade of valuing certain things competitively above and beyond anything else monetarily. But if that barrier gets broken, it's permanently broken. And the gig is up on everything. So they know, I can promise you, they know we've got to get this figured out before someone figures out that's 19 or 20 years old that they could hold us up at the 11th hour on games that we've paid billions of dollars to broadcast. Because right now, you've got a huge blind spot. Everyone knows that. You better get it figured out.
Florida State fans are already making that allegation about their defensive line situation.
Josh Pate, are you willing to tell me that Tennessee is as much of a national title contender as Georgia and Texas?
Do it.
No. Ask me the follow-up. Give me the follow-up.
He was expecting you to say yes. All anybody said to him for the last 2 weeks is yes about that.
Look, no, but it's fair. I guess the smart way to ask that question. 2022 Tennessee was never a national title contender. Right. Offense was the great equalizer, but the defense, the talent, the depth wasn't there. Is the talent, the defense, the depth there enough to join that great equalizer that is the offense and elevate Tennessee into that tier?
Yes. There's your yes.
Okay.
And I'll even expound on this one professionally. I will expound on this one. My answer is not a resounding no. My answer is on a neutral field right now, I still think those teams would be favored over Tennessee. But the difference is, remember 2 years ago, you've got the Bama game. That's what everyone remembers. You had to score half 100 to win it, but you won it. Then everyone's attention shifted to, they go to Georgia in a couple of weeks. And weren't they briefly ranked number one?
Tennessee was number one
they were,
going into that game.
So they go in there and they don't match up. All right, so then we get 2 years removed from that. You're going to get Bama at home again. You're going to go to Georgia again. And the whole question on everyone's mind is, what lesson did you learn from that? How differently did you apply development, talent acquisition, evaluation, everything? I think Tennessee, evaluation-wise, not to get sidetracked, really a step ahead of the game. They're doing a really good job on that front. So back on the main road now. How will they look physically against Georgia? And how will Georgia look against Alabama this weekend, by the way? I think the answer is yes. Here's the difference. The difference is a first-year starter at quarterback is a different animal in October, November than he is in September. So I'm still watching Nico go through a lot of firsts. He's very, very supremely qualified to handle them and pass them test-wise with flying colors. So my answer is not no, man, they're not close. My answer is, may see still a little separation, but that's a gap that can close within a season. So they're there.
He saw the hurt in your eyes and he couched it.
It did hurt me.
Is what happened.
It was
there.
have you ever had a country music song look at you? That was a country music song looking at me. I'm not talking about bro country. I'm talking about late 80s, early 90s, crying in a boxcar, man. That was tough. Tennessee is going to win it all, Lucas. Tennessee
thank you.
is
Just
going
tell
all
him
the way.
that. That's all he wanted from you there.
Well,
that's all he wanted.
It is interesting. Tennessee fans, it's hard for them to stop at that line, right?
Yeah,
because even in 2022, Tennessee's the number one team in the country. It's hard for fans not to say, of course, we're a title contender. Look at the college football playoff ranking. But there was still this feeling of everybody looking around with this wondrous, what's going on here? It feels a little more secure in 2024. Yes, Josh.
Thank you. It is different. It is different. You shouldn't stop. You should be head over heels on this. And here's the difference. Here's how here's a sure sign that your program is just leveled up. Remember when Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma? And they would score 1 million points every week. But when they would get in a playoff situation, they were no match for an Alabama because they had 2022 Tennessee problems. They could score a lot, but physically they didn't match up. All right, Lincoln Riley never changed that. He's only just now changing it at USC, years later. Heupel was that in 2022. Difference is now there are facets of the Tennessee program rapidly scaling up that are out of his wheelhouse. That's how you know a coach is going from just a glorified coordinator to a legit head coach, a high-level head coach, because he has nothing to do with defense historically. And yet portions of his program that are out of his wheelhouse are scaling up. That's a big deal. That means that your coach has got staying power, and not that anyone's doubting that there. But that's a sign that you're going to actually be a contender, and it's worth drinking the Kool-Aid this year.
We're going to talk about this weekend's slate of college football. One huge game in the SEC in particular with Josh Pate, if he's got about 10 more minutes for us.
I may even have like 12 or 13.
Look at that. That's next.